Okay. Testing? Yeah. So hi, everyone. Welcome to my talk, Invoke-NoShell. Once you're out of here, like this evening or in just like 15 minutes time, you'll be, well, we will add to your knowledge a nice way to execute PowerShell without PowerShell, which is quite weird, but we'll get to it. And you'll get a tool to take all of this nice PowerShell things and put it in a malicious document. So let's look a bit at the outline of the talk. We'll begin with a bit about PowerShell, why it's good for, what is it good for, absolutely nothing, and why red teamers like it, and what do we lack in PowerShell for both red teamers and blue teamers. And we will proceed to see what the hell my tool is doing. And then we'll see how it actually works and performs against AVs. So this is a fast talk. Note, it's going to be like 15 minutes talk. So please stay focused and stay quiet so I'll be able to stay focused. Thank you. A bit about myself. I work for Minerva Labs with those two fans and front row. And I did some previous work. You can search all of it in my GitHub account, which is down here, including Invoke-NoShell. Feel free to contact me on Twitter, Facebook, I don't know, even on Instagram if you really want to. I don't know. I'll be very happy to answer any kind of questions you have. And finally, a couple of thanks for Philip, who spoke here before today. He inspired me to do this project in object-oriented PowerShell, which is quite weird, but he inspired me to do it. And to Dana Josifovic, which is not here also. Yeah, she promised she'll be here, but tough luck, for giving me the motivation to do the trick you're about to see with the PowerShell-less PowerShell execution. So, PowerShell, what is it good for? Mostly this kind of screens we all know too good. No, not really. It is a really nice kind of a scripting language, comes built in Windows. There are tons of open source frameworks for red teamers to use it, all kind of compatible with Metasploit, which is good because we're lazy. We don't want to build anything which is too complex, and we just can just like, you know, take it off the shelf and win most of the AVs which are out there nowadays, which is cool and easy. So I did a quick survey. I questioned about 80 researchers about PowerShell, and indeed, most of like security researchers, pen testers, most of them, like over 95%, I believe, know PowerShell. Some regret that they know it, but including me. But almost everybody knows PowerShell and uses PowerShell to some extent. Also, most of the people who actually use it for offensive purposes actually bypass AV successfully using it. So yeah, it's not like a big surprise for anyone, but yeah, it was also a question. Also, the people who actually use PowerShell offensively do it mostly with known frameworks we talked about before. Again, not surprising, never invent the wheel. This kind of people who actually write their own PowerShell offensive payload, it's the kind of people that invent their own cryptography, I believe, as well, which is, well, you know, yeah. One last bonus question. All of us know this nice screen. Execution policy is restricted. All of us have seen it too often, I guess, at least me. We will return to it later in this talk. All of the people suffer from it in different levels. Some disabled it, some didn't, but yeah. Okay, but what we do lack, we have amazing frameworks which allow us to bypass AVs. If you have any experience using it, you already know it. So it's awesome, it works, but when I want to use it, I want to deploy it somehow, often using a malicious document, using some macro tricks, DDE, whatever, and I want to automate it. I want to have all kinds of tricks which are released on a daily basis, and to have it all in And I have some kind of restrictions sometimes on PowerShell. I wanted to automate all of the process and to have one tool to rule them all and to be able to pack all of this nicely and neatly without too many manual labor. There is a tool called Lucky Strike, which is nice, but it wasn't sufficient for me. So this is how Invoke-NoShell was born. Invoke-NoShell, you can see below here. I hope you can see the link now. I don't want to hurt BB-8. Yeah, so Invoke-NoShell is a mixture of cool PowerShell tricks, of PowerShell less PowerShell execution. It is already online. My presentation is there as well. So don't be super picky about writing all the notes. It is a combination of a few nice tricks and a framework for creating documents with macro code embedded in them automatically, which is quite nice. So this is what you're here for. This is the PowerShell-less PowerShell execution. I don't know how many of you know it. This is PowerShell ISE, the built-in IDE for PowerShell. It's usually used for debugging PowerShell on Windows machines. And it turns out that if you read the documentation, there's this variable which resolves to a path, this path. And if you place a PowerShell script, a PS1 file, in this path, whenever PowerShell ISE starts up, it will be loaded with no PowerShell.exe instances at all, which is like, what? But nobody blocks PowerShell ISE, etc. And well, it turns out to be a nice, cool trick to bypass any kind of restrictions on PowerShell.exe. But wait. There's the execution policy kind of thing. We always use this -EP bypass if you're bad hackers, etc. And we can't do it with PowerShell ISE. It doesn't get these arguments, you know. So yeah, so back to the kind of question from before, from the kind of poll that I did. Execution policy is broken. It's just like a broken thing. It doesn't work. You can just take it and just throw it away. I did maybe a couple of minutes Google searching for a way to bypass execution policy, and I found this cool registry key and value, which should be set. It is in the current user hive, so you even don't have to be an admin. And once this registry key is set, you can execute PowerShell without setting any kind of unrestricted execution policy from an admin prompt or something. This is all you need to do. You don't need to be an admin. Execution policy is broken, and it's just worthless. The only thing that it does, it kind of disturbs me from doing what I want to do when I need to actually use PowerShell. Credit, by the way, to the link below. So what we now have is a couple of tricks, but I also want to use them in a document, in a tool of some sort. So in this stage, I kind of went through all of what I have. I have a couple of tricks, which I can decide whether or not I want to use. I can also decide when I want to launch this PowerShell payload, on open, on close, or on user click. So I have, if you'll count it, I have 12 different possible permutations to select from. And I have two modes for my tool now. My tool just gets a PowerShell payload, and you can either use it in a manual mode to selectively manually pick whether or not you want any of the features, or you can use it in this automatic mode and just generate 12 documents at once and throw it at AV as I did. So this brings me to the test. I actually took a ransomware, a very well-known one, with over 95% detection in VirusTotal. I used Invoke Reflective Injection, a very well-known framework to load the bytes directly to the memory. No special tricks, just took the bytes, injected it to the memory, and I targeted, I created 12 documents, and I threw it at 5 popular enterprise class AVs. All fully enabled. if they have any kind of restriction for PowerShell, it was applied. And in this stage, I actually set an interesting success criteria. I wanted, success was defined as a kind of a situation where some of the payloads bypassed the AVs and some didn't. So if none bypassed the AV, my tool is crap. And if none were detected by the AV is worthless. So I wanted to kind of a trade-off to define the kind of a situation where my tool is actually useful. And for the results, drums, 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 yeah, 100%. It's like a quite rare situation when it comes to information security, but 100% of the payloads actually bypass the AV. But it's not actually 100% because in 40% of the cases, actually all of the payloads bypass the AV. And in 60% of the payloads, my tool was actually useful. So yeah, it was kind of a not worthless job. It actually served me well. And I think that, yeah, it was a good job. I can do like this myself. And yeah, oh yeah, I forgot about him. He kind of surprised me now. Life-size Chuck Norris. And so to conclude this kind of test thing, it kind of worked. And it was wonderful to watch all of those vendors who claim that no PowerShell can be executed under this setting. Yeah, I totally smashed them. And this brings me to the good idea, bad idea phase of the talk. Good ideas and bad ideas are actually quite the same here. Never believe two kind of vendors which promise you 100% bulletproof PowerShell-less environment. There's no such thing as 100% blocking or in information security at all. We just released a blog about it today. You can read the full backstory, origin story of Invoke-NoShell in Minerva's blog today if you want to. I kind of search for good advices for blue teamers other than that, and it's mostly about logging. My tool, by the way, if you have PowerShell 5 or more advanced version, it is logged. So enable logs and don't rely on any kind of promises which actually are worthless. And I guess that this is time to my mandatory slide with a cat. He actually looks at PowerShell. Note that it is like on a Mac. I don't know how comes it is PowerShell on a Mac, but yeah, it's a curious situation we have here. Again, this is my Twitter handle and my GitHub account. The project is already up there, and I don't know if we have time for Q&A or not, but yeah, this was Invoke-NoShell. We have time for Q&A? We have time for Q&A, right, or not? Yeah. OK, so questions?
We have on the timer.
Yeah. Questions, anyone? Nobody. Wow. Thank you. So I guess this is it.